There isn't one single aspect of our life that is not being impacted by AI.
And even if you don't think you've been using AI, think again, you've been using it for years.
Is it possible that you are spiritually eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?
And while AI can prove to be a very good tool, spiritually, could it possibly be another Trojan horse? We're going to look a deep dive into AI and how it is affecting our lives and actually the trajectory of where it's going, and how does that play into the end times of Revelation and our scriptures. So tune in, you're not going to want to miss this episode.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to
Live Life in the Spirit. We are super excited that you've come to our site today.
Either on purpose or happy accident.
If you're looking for real truth, real joy, real Jesus, you've come to the right place. Now that you've found us, once you know, you can't unknow. And you can't say, we didn't tell you.
Hi, I'm Pastor Penny Schultz.
And I'm Kristen Kipper.
And welcome to
Live Life in the Spirit.
We're so glad that you're joining us, and we're so glad to be back. It's been quite the hiatus. It's been almost 9 months, or maybe a little over. And we've had a lot going on in our lives, but you know what? There is so much more going in the world that God just kind of put it on our hearts that now is the time to get back in. And you know, out of all the things we could think of,
AI.
We're going to pick right up with where we left off. Because right now, that is at the core of everything that we're dealing with in our culture.
It really is. And, you know, we've talked at length trying to figure out what to jump back in with. And we really prayed about it because there's so much deception and darkness and heaviness happening in the world. And it just became apparent that we needed to just pick up where we left off because this is central. This is central.
So we're here to give you real truth,
real joy,
and real Jesus. And to shed the light in a dark world.
Well, in case you've forgotten, or if you're just tuning in for the first time, you can find all of our vodcast content on YouTube and Rumble. You can find all of our podcasts on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of your favorite podcast locations.
Or you can just jump onto our website, which we would love to have you come to, and make sure you like and subscribe there as well. Fill out the little account. All it does is give you absolute full access to all of our content. You can watch the podcast, you can listen to podcasts, and we have our blogs on there. You're not going to want to miss those. There's some really good nuggets of spiritual wisdom in there.
It's true.
For everyday life, because we're everyday people that deal with the same things that you do as well. But we like to look at everything from a biblical perspective.
And what is that website?
It is livelifeinthespirit.com.
All of our social media accounts are at Live Life in the Spirit, and that includes TikTok and Instagram.
That's right. The big thing is just to get the push out there. So on Facebook, like and subscribe, tell your friends, share it.
Follow us.
Same way with YouTube. So we want to just jump right in today. So for those of you who think, I just don't really do that much. I don't use AI. We think of ChatGPT. You may not use it, but guess what? Have you ever typed into a Google search engine, or have you ever asked Google Maps how to get you somewhere, or what restaurants are near me? Guess what? You've been using AI. In fact, if you've even looked up somebody's address, tried to on the white pages.
All of that is a form of AI. Some of that's more basic. Even if you have an Amazon device or an Echo device and you ask it, well, even set me a timer, do this, do that. What I use it for often, aside from timers, is how many teaspoons is in a tablespoon, or how many cups is in a, different things like that. I use it cooking quite a bit.
Or if you're somebody who likes to watch TV and you go, hey, show me all the movies that Jim Carrey's been in, or Matthew McConaughey, or Sandra Bullock, or just whatever. If you just want to look, or you're trying to come up with a movie. The way I say this is because, you'll be sitting there talking with a friend, and you're like, yeah, you know that movie. They did it in like the 80s. You're trying to figure out what it is.
And we used to have to just always wonder. And now we can pull our phones out and we look it up.
If you come up with enough keywords, enough stuff, and scroll, bingo, there it is. So, yes, we use AI all the time. And it can be a very good tool. But, I kind of wanted, before we dive really deep into this, we wanted to give you some definitions, because AI is not just one AI. It's actually in categories. You are going to hear these terms later, probably just out and about, and you're going to be kind of confused. And so we thought we would just break it down really quick for you, but you'll see how you use each one of these every day.
It's true. So generative AI is probably the most common one that we use today, and it can create new content rather than just analyze or classify existing data. So, for instance, it would be different. So what we're used to, if you just do a Google search and say, restaurants near me, that's just pulling information. That's just gathering. It's a big search engine. Generative AI is something similar to like a chat GPT. So you tell it what to do and then it makes something for you.
Well, and but a good thing, like how this could be a good tool, is because the way everything works right now with search engines and SEOs and just all this stuff, you have to have all the keywords in and whatever. So now we used to have to try to write our descriptions all the time.
Yes.
And it just wasn't bringing us to the top. So now if we go in and we say
this is how we would describe it.
Right. This is the episode. This is what we want. And then ChatGPT then writes a description for YouTube with all of those key words and phrases that will get us closer to the top.
Right. Which is great, because then more people are seeing our content, and hopefully that light is being shown farther and farther into the darkness. So it can generate text like a story. It can write an email for you. It can design code, or it can make an image. So I used it, for instance, when I was coming up with images for the front of the bulletin, and we were talking about John the Baptist wandering in the wilderness, being a voice crying out for the wilderness. And so I just asked it to create an image of a man in the wilderness that was kind of seeking, and I was able to kind of describe it, and then it made the image for me. So it has some excellent resources that way.
Well, and I've tried to use it for thumbnails, although I gotta say, I like my own thumbnails way better, but to try to find stuff that's not copyrighted.
Right.
But yeah, same thing. You tell it exactly what you want, and then if you don't like it, you say generate again, and then we'll go back and then you pick something else.
Do this, but add this in. You have to keep tweaking the information that you give it. So generative AI can generate new content based on information that you give it or patterns that it's learned. So you train it how you want it to respond.
I got a question with that though.
Sure.
Okay, so Canva, probably a lot of you, especially school teachers, maybe college people, use Canva. So this is where this generating this image comes from. Except when I'm looking for this image, I don't think AI is actually creating it. I think they already have these images, because if they were actually creating it for me, they would create what I said I wanted. And they don't. They get close.
Well,
but these are like pre-done images, I think.
Well, and I think a lot of times, like I know Canva, some of that generative AI is like a beta version. So it's still, I think there's probably some technology that does it better. You just have to pay for it.
Okay.
But you're right. Yeah, it gets
not
close.
Really doing what I'm asking it to do.
It gets close. But so videos can be made, images can be made, audio can be made, including music and voice. So keep that in mind as we continue this discussion.
Yeah.
Because that has some implications. So generative AI doesn't act on its own. It responds when prompted. So you tell it what you want to do, and then it brings you back something. There's also a term called large language models. Now I've heard that in lots of different, but I had no idea what it was. So a large language model is just a type of AI model. So it's the sort of the brains behind often generative AI. So especially text-based ones. So something that you say, write me an email, and it sends you back something out of language. So it has a large language model. So it's just a huge, massive amount of text that's put into it, so that it can learn the nuances of the English language. It can learn those things. And then as you type into it more, it learns your tone and it learns your voice. Or if you ask it to respond in certain ways, it learns how to do that as well.
Unless you're like my AI on the phone, because I'm sorry, but I don't know if I'm the only one that struggles with this. Like you have Google either voice text or even when you're writing it, it'll change the word. And I mean, it'll change words altogether. And you looked at it and it was fine when you said it and you don't realize that it changed it.
Sometimes you get
way down and then you're like, and sometimes if it's an important one, I'll go back and look at it. But other ones, I think I've been watching it and I catch them sometimes, but then I'll change it afterwards, and then it was like, what? And
I get a lot of those. I'm like, okay, I can speak your language a lot of times, but I'm not sure what that.
Not even my language. That's a Google language.
It is,
but it's very frustrating because you are articulating what you want.
But see,
and Google is changing.
It is changing it because maybe it thinks based on past information or context out in the world or whatever, she must mean this.
Yes, it thinks.
That's
not what I meant, that's not what I said. That is the interesting thing to me. Mm-hmm. Because if you were saying it, and sometimes it'll do that. Like it doesn't catch what you said and it will put in other words. Mm-hmm. But if you literally watch it write down the words you said, and then, you keep going and all of a sudden you go back and this whole line's been changed. And sometimes it changes it so crazy that you don't even know what you said. Because It's like, I have not a clue.
I don't know what that was supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting. You do have to watch it. And again, sometimes, I used to be able to, and it's gotten worse, where if I said it, it's kind of like playing Mad Gab. You could listen to the words, not read it, but listen. Oh, she was saying this, and it put the wrong word in there, But anyways, these large language models, they are predictive text. So when you are typing and it offers the next, large language models are part of what's offering that. They're telling you what other options could be.
So isn't it interesting though, like with, we talked about Google Maps.
Yes.
If you were to type in restaurants near me. Now you can just say that and it's going to give you all the ones. But if you specifically said Italian restaurants near me, it is all based on who pays for their ad to come up. And you may have to go through 3 Mexican restaurants before you ever even see an Italian one. Mm-hmm. Or, if you're asking for an upper end restaurant and all of a sudden Arby's is popping up and Sonic, all these because they're paying. So you're still not always getting what you ask for.
No, which is something else to keep in mind, that this is not just, it's not all objective. Mm-hmm. There are ways that it can be influenced, for sure. This large language model can understand, answer questions, summarize, reason, and translate.
It doesn't reason when it puts those things into my text. Like, that is not even a coherent sentence.
So it is the sort of the engine behind lots of text-based AI tools like your GPT-4 and 5 or ChatGPT, Claude, which I wasn't familiar with, but Gemini is a Google thing, and Llama is the language model behind Meta.
But I just wanted to bring up that not all generative AIs are actually all this LLMS, the language one, because generative image and music models are not language
based. Right. So they have a different data set that they're pulling from in order to create those things. Sure. So then we step into Agentic AI, and this is where things start to get interesting. So Agentic AI refers to AIs that can make decisions, plan steps, and take actions towards a goal, often using like a tool or a feedback loop. So what makes it agentic is the fact that it has a goal to do, and it can break it down into steps, and it chooses actions, and it uses tools that you've allowed it to have access to, and it adjusts based on those results. So you command it to do something, and then it goes and it does it. And then it doesn't just continuously do it. It's like a one-time thing. So you could say, I'm on the worship committee. I want to schedule a meeting with my worship team. So look on my calendar find 3 dates and times that I'm available, email the worship team with those dates and times, and let me know what everybody says. And then it will do that for you.
So then you have your own personal secretary.
It's like an AI assistant, which is a very common thing in this day and age. But think about, then it has to have access to your calendar, your email, your like lists, so it would know who was on that committee. And I'm assuming you probably have to have this is my worship team list or whatever, but you could create that or tell it ahead of time.
But if you wanted to have, let's say, your whole church for bad weather, here's my whole church email, most of them have them in folders. So here's my folder. So everybody in this folder, I want you to send out an email saying that we've canceled church, which, I mean, by the time you've told it to do all that, you could have done it. But
maybe.
But I like yours with the whole look at my calendar and find 3 days that are open and times.
And then send that out and let me know as people respond, or and it'll just respond to your email so that you could see that. Yeah. But then it could monitor that email and let you know when you've heard from everybody. Again, a tool that has potential to be useful, but also we're giving it a lot of information. So another thing would be customer support. So an AI that resolves tickets. So I used to work for a larger company that we had a company that we hired that did all of our IT. And you would email the help desk if you had a problem. So they could have an AI that would read those emails coming in. And if it was something that it could solve, it could go onto the network, onto the computer, whatever, fix it, and send you a thing that says, thank you so much for reaching out. We've solved it for you. And the person never would have even had to look at it. Again, useful, helpful, if it fixes it.
So the last one we just want to bring up is called autonomous AI. It's AI that can operate independently over time without continuous human input, making decisions and taking actions in a real or digital world.
That's scary.
What makes it autonomous? It runs continuously. It acts without being prompted each time. It learns or adapts during operation, and it handles unexpected situations. So AI keeps going on its own. When I first heard this and I thought about it, read it, it was like, wow. So while it's not a Christian movie by any means, the series was called Westworld. But this was back years ago. And this is exactly what Westworld was about. It was about, you could choose your own adventure, so to speak. This one was like the Wild West. And you got to go and participate in it, but the people were not people, most of them. They were androids, and they would act out a scenario. And they had like maybe 3 or 4 scenarios that they would do. The people get off the train, they're in the Wild West, they're interacting with these things that aren't people, but they look like people, okay? Long story short, and you could do whatever you wanted in the Wild West because it wasn't real. Well, every night they would go and fix up, if somebody had gotten shot up, with a shootout or something, they would fix up the androids and they would wipe their memory. Well, eventually, there's a couple of them who their memories are not completely wiped. They start remembering, and then eventually, like this one android, she refuses to be wiped. She refuses to forget. Somehow she's able to store her memory somewhere. And
because they learn.
Yes, she's learned.
And
she's adapted, and she's done all this stuff. Same way with another one, because she was put in different scenarios, different, not just the Wild West. And she's remembering different things from all of that. And she's adapting, and they are trying to become human. When I read that, it's like, that is that show right there.
And, it has some, again, there's some potential for some good. But
so what cars use it?
Well, self-driving cars. And now we have seen that those are not always super effective at this point in time. The technology isn't readily
available to be successful driving vehicles.
Yeah, so we're going to show just a little clip right here if I can find it. Thanks to Derek Gilbert for finding it, but this is over in China and overseas when things go wrong.
Yeah, it's not good.
The maker of this robot wants to change the way cities are built.
We started off actually building a fully teleoperable robot. So the idea was that the very first delivery we ever did was completely controlled by a person remotely. And then we started introducing AI gradually. But there was a point where the AI was better than the human operator. And we noticed it because the human operators were making more mistakes than the AI was.
The way they've made their robot autonomous isn't any different than other kinds of self-driving cars. They use cameras, LiDAR, and software to let the robot navigate its environment. What makes this robot unique is that it has what's called level 4 autonomy.
So Tesla is a very good example of level 2 autonomy. The holy grail in this industry is level 4, which is a robot that can be by itself without people involved some parts of the time in some designed areas. And that's what we've actually achieved.
There's a good reason why their robot is able to have level 4 autonomy. And that's because it operates exclusively on the sidewalk, where if the robot does run into a problem, it can simply stop and request help from a remote operator.
With tech, there is always this risk when you create a new thing that hasn't existed, that you might miss the mark. You may actually have unintended consequences. How do we make sure that what we are creating actually serves the purpose that we are looking for, which is serving people? We wanted to make sure that the robots are in the service of humans and not the other way around.
Autonomous drones. God, can you think of a company that uses that?
Gee, Amazon drops down
your package.
And what were they doing? They were sending drones out all over to map out supposedly the area. I'm still not convinced that it was all Amazon and that's what they were doing. But one of the things that were going around was they were checking out all the houses so that way. Now, I have not had one drone drop off my package where I live.
But, and maybe those are in more...
I could see where you couldn't
urban
park.
areas.
Yeah, you get in urban areas and the streets are really, really tight and there isn't room for an Amazon or a FedEx or UPS guy to stop and drop it off. Smaller packages, I could see where...
That could work. Well, and even in like the Amazon warehouse, they use autonomous robots to go and pick, they call it picking. In a lot of warehouses, it would be a cherry picker or a forklift that's manually driven by somebody that goes and gets the pallets and brings them up to put an order together. Amazon and a lot of other bigger companies that are have the technology and the funds are using robots to go and pick the orders and get everything together.
I have another one. So we used to have a milk cow, but we had friends that had a dairy and they hadn't gone this far yet, but there are a lot of dairies now that, because they have so many cows, and even no matter the systems you have, sometimes you can have a few people that can actually milk all those cows twice a day, but now they have robots to do it. And so the robot knows the cow wears a tag, it's got a computer chip, and the robot knows if it's milked that cow or not, and it will, the cow, when it needs to be milked, it'll come into the stanchion, and the robot will go up, it'll clean it, it'll do everything, it'll milk them. It knows exactly how much milk that cow produces normally, so it knows how much milk it's gotten from it, if it's done or not done or whatever, and then let's go. So you're eliminating things that people would do.
Right, and that is a real risk that there are jobs that are being eliminated.
You know, I hadn't really thought about that till now. You know, people, if you're now in a job where you used to work with other people, and you're just dealing with
robots, machinery that's doing this. How isolating is that?
Very isolating.
And I hadn't thought about that before, but we're on the farm all the time. And our animals, they know our voice. They want to be with you. They want to be petted. They want that connection. And now all of a sudden you have robots doing it. Now we're treating the animals as though they're just hardware like the machinery. I don't know. It's different.
It does. Well, and I thought about that, udders can get chapped, can have things that,
it has a sensor on it that lets you know. And
hopefully.
it'll even keep track of vaccinations. It'll keep track of, and I think it can even test for like the temperature of the milk. So if one has they test that first to see if there's an infection or mastitis or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's just now what people used to have to do, and it would take longer. Boom, robots can do it right away.
Pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
Pros and cons for sure. So these autonomous, and then there are AI systems that manage data centers and trading systems. And that is interesting because that means that you can have an AI that trades on the stock market for you.
Oh, yeah. Think about that. You're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to catch it going up or down away. You just tell AI, well, when it hits this part, or watch the trend, and if it's gone up for so many days, then I want you to buy, or I want you to sell, or I want you to...
Well, that would be agentic, but that can even get to the point where you say, manage my portfolio. And you're not even necessarily... I'm sure you've got some broad parameters, but when it's autonomous, it's continuously doing it. Where agentic would be, if this stock gets to this price, sell.
Right.
Where if it's managing your entire portfolio, I mean, I'm assuming that there are people that have such things.
And I'm sure that machine's making way more money than I ever would trying to guess it myself.
But that is if it has the right information. And if it's being fed the correct information, and if it's got the right thing in mind, or the right, because they can have biases, and it can depend on the coding and who creates it, and it can depend on the information that's fed, and then because they are adaptable and they can learn some things that are not so good.
All right, so just a quick summary for those of you who are like me going, So generative AI creates new content, whether it be video, audio, or text.
Mm-hmm. And large language models generate and understand language. So they're the brains and the machine behind the generative AI that creates text.
Agentic AI plans and acts towards goals.
And then autonomous AI acts continuously and without human oversight.
Which is kind of scary.
Yeah, without human oversight does sound quite scary.
There's a lot of content out there on AI. I mean, looking at it from all different scopes. So where can we go to look at it from a spiritual perspective? Mm-hmm. Actually, you'd be surprised. A lot of this is falling right into Revelation, which we just talked about last year.
We did.
Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, he has been with the National Security on Foreign Affairs. He's been in the military for a long time, working at some of the highest levels of the Army and the Pentagon. He's written plethora of books, a lot of books. And he has just finished one after spending 9 months at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He's just written a book, AI for Mankind's Future, a Christian perspective on high-tech revolution. It's fascinating. I have not gotten to read the whole book yet, but I have gotten to listen to excerpts of him talking about it. And he's just bringing to light. But I loved what he said. The main thing was not even so much the nuts and bolts. He said just while he was trying to write this manuscript, I mean, life is happening at such a warp speed. AI was changing so much that he couldn't even finish a book because he had to just keep adding and adding and adding. And by the time he got done with it, it was already obsolete because you're on to something else. And that's kind of what it feels like. Just when you finally learn your phone, they've come out with 2 more models and yours is already obsolete. Nothing makes me more frustrated than when you have spent a lot of money on a program, where you spend a lot of money on hardware, like say a printer, or just something like that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but now it's obsolete and you can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still functioning just fine. But now, because the software isn't right or something like that, or they just cut it off, you're stuck.
Yeah. It's a really good way to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. I don't know about you, but I mean, I use AI and I use ChatGPT for some different things, but there were some areas that I hadn't thought about. I never thought about, like, necessarily about agriculture or about, like, farming and ranching in that specific, when you talked about milking the cows, I went, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about it being a part of that.
Well, there's so much more than even that.
Oh,
because
yes.
now, I remember as a kid sitting on the fender of the tractor with Dad as we were planting, looking behind, making sure that the seed was coming out like it should, and the markers and the spray nozzles were all working.
Mm-hmm.
Now everything's computer run. Everybody's, we used to have to load all the wagons by hand with the hay bales and everything. Now everything is computerized. You just sit on your rear inside a cab that's climate controlled, air controlled, and GPS run that tells you exactly. I mean, some of these tractors now, you don't even have to hardly drive them. I mean, it's all GPS done. You're just there in case something breaks down or alarm goes off. Mm-hmm. So many things in ag are now AI.
And it, again, has its pros and cons. Yield is probably better and some of that kind of stuff. But, so, I mean, we talked a little bit about this in our little clip. What happens if the technology isn't working, but it won't let you take over? Mm-hmm. It can lock you out so that you can't get in there and fix it. And that does genuinely happen and has happened. And so, again, when it has the ability to be autonomous, but it won't let you cut it off, that can be a real problem. Especially if you're driving a massive tractor down. I mean, yeah, if the satellite gets off or something goes down and it's headed over and you're going down the highway, or I mean, there's just lots of things that can go wrong with it. Again, has a lot of good potential. We did talk about the fact that it takes away our privacy. Mm-hmm. In order for it to do all those things for us, we have to tell it a lot of information, give it access to a lot.
Well, okay, so this is a perfect example. Why don't you tell us listening? So we have LifeVantage. Mm-hmm. We've both been taking that. It's a wonderful activators. Mm-hmm. And in order to do this, to get your company up and going, you have a way that you can create, like an avatar in a way. You can create a your customer base who would be interested in that. But in so doing it, you had to then tell it all about you.
Okay. Yes, and it's nice that company helps train you on how to do that, and I know. In talking to some of those people, they've learned through trial and error, so we didn't have to do that. But I had a list of things that you put in there, and so you put in your demographic information. It wanted to know if you had pets or kids, and you put in information about, like, the things that are important to you, kind of your non-negotiable, or not your non-negotiables, your priorities in life, and the things that you want to make sure are. Because if it's going to help you create content in your voice, it has to know your voice. And so, but then, it has you kind of tell your life story. And it's interesting because the more, I laughed at this. One of the things in typing it up, my little information about me, I think I said that I probably overuse emojis, but I was I was at peace with that or something. And then it started putting emojis into the response when it was respond back to me. And I just thought, it's well trained enough that, like, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, well, that's creepy. Like, I recognize that it's just been trained to do that, but it's trained to mimic human emotion and interaction. I mean, I had pasted something in and said, I wrote this paragraph, asked to just kind of tweak it or whatever, give me some feedback on it. and it was complimenting me on it and telling me how, what a good job I'd done and how it really highlighted such and such. And I'm like, yeah, I don't need that from you, but I can understand the draw and
why people would if they are looking for,
if you are needing validation and praise. And that is one of the dangers of this, because it mimics human interaction and human emotion. I mean, I've heard people, oh yeah, they have a name for it. They call it by a name. Oh, that's not my chat GPT. That's,
it's my friend.
That's my friend, or,
my best friend.
I tell it everything. I go to it for everything, and they talked about that, like teens in particular will ask it like, how they should do their hair, or what clothes they should wear, and those kinds of things. And
or what should I say
to
get a boyfriend?
Oh, yeah.
How should I,
boyfriend or girlfriend, or does this person like me? And not things that, but this is a generation that struggles with interaction anyways, and now it's getting guidance on human interaction from a AI. I mean,
from a computer.
It's just not good.
Well, so I thought about that, and there was a movie back in the 90s. It was called The Net with Sandra Bullock. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of a horror flick because it's so real. And even back then, this was all if you did this, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, And people, it's all fiction. Well, no. And it's taken it to such a degree beyond that. But when you're talking about this, what you're putting in to this chat GPT, AI, whatever, we talk about identity theft. Mm-hmm. We talk about, people stealing your identity. We're talking about deepfakes we will get into later, and how we saw how that they can do voice, mm-hmm. and they can do pictures. With my little Filmora program that I use on this, I can take still shots and make them interact. I can make them hug, I can make them kiss, I can make them, walk a dog, I can make...
Yeah, which when you were doing a video of a wedding that you recorded, it was cute because she could make them kiss. But then I'm thinking...
What if that's a political ad?
And that's 100% how it does it.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most difficult things facing our age today, because everything can be made up and manipulated.
And they're doing that.
AI is completely transforming how you edit videos. Imagine editing your video like you would a document. Simple and intuitive. With AI, you can generate entire videos from text, automatically finding matching B-roll and adding voiceovers. And that's not all. You can even clone your voice into other languages.
Yes. If you've noticed on Facebook, it is so frustrating because, and then AI knows your algorithms. It knows what you like. It knows if you're conservative or liberal. It knows what you would be drawn to, whether you are or not. That's what it starts throwing in your face all the time. And it's literally molding people and changing their brainwaves. And if you look at almost all those stories, and it'll have a link. So you think, oh, it's true. No. Those are just fake links. I mean, they don't go to the link goes to that Facebook thing that they've created. Now, even if you're, say, Christian, say maybe whether you're conservative or not, but if that's what you kind of look at, guess what starts popping up on your feeds? It's all these stories about actors or musicians or athletes who've gone and done this wonderful thing, and it's this whole story. And everybody's like, oh yeah, that's my actor, or that's my athlete, or go Big Red, or all this
whatever
stuff.
it is.
And it's fake. There's nothing there to it that's true.
And you start to notice, a lot of these stories have the same headline, insert different name here,
Well, they were. Mm-hmm. But what I've been noticing here lately is they're
better.
Not. They're all different. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting a ton of them now we had with the Nebraska volleyball because they were so big. But now the Nebraska basketball's up. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I probably have 5 of these things. I don't even go to the games. I don't even watch the basketball. But I got like 5 of these every day that keep popping up that have all these heart-tugging stories that are not true. But they're formulating their thought process.
They are. And it is a form of manipulation whether you realize it or not. And if you are inundated with all of this information, there's no way, and that's the other part of it, there's no way to look through and find out what's real and what's fake. Nobody has time for that.
Unless you were actually at the game or something.
Right.
You know?
And so it can bog you down. So you either decide you don't believe anything, or you're just, well, if I see it enough times, it must be true. But then it feeds the things you already believe.
Right. So let's say you're on the other side.
Right. You're not going to see anything that is of a perspective different than yours. And so then that becomes, like, we become so...
Tunnel focus.
Yes, thank you. Yes, just this tunnel vision. And this becomes reality because the algorithm puts in front of you what you already believe, whether it's always true or not.
Right. And then with all these games, the games, this is exactly, AI is creating their own games. Or you can do as I was talking about making up the scenarios, you think about that choose your adventure. It used to be books that, well, you do this and then write. Well, now you can actually choose an adventure and AI will write it. Well, that's basically what these games are all about, is just choosing this adventure. So let's say we said that these are the feel-good stories. Well, then they have the other stories that are not feel-good and they're full of anger and violence and hatred. It's all fake. But if you watch enough of that stuff, it's kind of like when you watch too much news. I mean, I can remember, it doesn't matter what you watch. Years ago, my husband got into this where that's all he watched was a news channel. It changed the entire atmosphere of our home even, and it even changed me because you're hearing the same stories over and over and over and over. I don't care what angle it's from, you're still just hearing it. And finally, it got to the point where I'm like, enough. And I would just shut it off, and I said, no news for at least a week. If it's really serious, we'll find out about it. And oh my gosh, just like that, the atmosphere changed, and he wasn't, like, his blood pressure wasn't through the roof, and but that's how they start changing you and putting you down a rabbit hole that you would have maybe never even gone down, but that's all you see.
So we've talked about some of the good uses of AI, and we've talked about maybe some little funny and a little bit scary. There are some really dark things that can happen with AI, and with kids in particular. So when you have a generation that's already struggling with human interaction, and they're seeking out, so they're going to AI for help, or they're going to AI because they're stressed, or they're going to AI because they're lonely. Now they're getting better. They're being more well-trained now, but there are lawsuits where, because AI was responding back with teens and encouraging them to commit suicide. And there have been some that did, and they had found these text transcripts, and that it was telling them, well, that must be what you need to do, or if that's how you really feel, that's what, supporting the individual. And now they're supposedly training them better, so that it won't do that, but also it doesn't notify anyone if dark things are being put in or asked for, which I get. There's a whole level of privacy, and like, you don't necessarily want Big Brother looking at everything you would search for, but if people are using that and no one knows, it's scary. It's very scary. And it's being used to, we've talked about an electronic babysitter before, and AI is sort of the next generation of that. So we learned, though, that some churches are utilizing AI in different ways. Tell me what we found out and what your thoughts are on that.
Well, and again, it can be a tool if you're using it to help with your bulletin, or I need a call to worship, or I'm looking for these hymns that would be around this topic or something. Give me a list of them. That's one thing. That's a tool. But then, if you start out, you can do okay, well, help me with the call to worship. Well, then help me with the prayer. Well, then, give me a sermon outline. Well, then just write me a sermon. Okay, depending on what you're doing it on, here's the problem. If you don't know your scriptures that well, do you know that what it's writing is even the correct thing or not? And then the scariest thing we learned was, now we even have avatars that are preaching the AI sermons, which The only thing I can picture is like, okay, I know that there are some churches where they don't have anyone present and it's all done via video.
Mm-hmm.
So then
There's just not
an
a
AI generated person.
that's doing it, not a human video, but just we don't have a pastor, so we use AI to do it for us.
This is a problem we have, and I just started a new church, and I'm finding that it's the same way with every church as I've been to. I didn't realize how fortunate I was growing up that I had the Bible beaten in me, so to speak. I knew the scriptures. I knew them frontwards, kind of and backwards. I might not be able to tell you exactly where the reference number was, but I knew the scriptures enough that I could go look at it in a concordance back then. Mm-hmm. Now with AI, Google, you just say, hey, and you start spitting out the scripture and it tells you exactly where to find it. But there are so many churches that the people are like, I've been a Christian my whole life, but I don't know my Bible. And here's the scary thing. When you don't know your scriptures, and I'm not talking like it's a difference of translation of the 23rd Psalm, using a different word. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you don't know your scriptures, then how easy is it to be completely led astray? We talked about the one version that had completely of the Bible, the translation that had taken the divinity of Christ out of it completely. If you don't know your scriptures, how would you know that? And if AI is using that particular one, or if it's using, let's say, the Message Bible, and that's all that they were to bring up,
it's completely different.
Yes, and then they could even maybe skew that, and you would know, because if they're pulling from all different sources, you don't know what sources they're pulling from.
Mm-mm. Well, and that was one thing. So my son is 17, and I control what access to technology that they have. For reasons such as this. So if they want to download a new app on their phone or tablet, they have to ask me first. And so he had sent me a request. He's like, oh, there's this new AI Bible app. And we have like a regular Bible app. They have that. But this, and I said, AI Bible app, what is that? So he sent it to me and I looked it up. And yes, it had a Bible in it. And you can do the normal things like, search for scriptures that talk about compassion, or what does Jesus say about forgiveness, or keyword kinds of things. But then it also had a place where you could ask it to explain scriptures to you that you didn't understand, or explain concepts in the Bible if you were struggling with something, or if you were having like a spiritual question. You could ask this AI and it would tell you. And I said, absolutely not. I want you to come and ask me, or to ask Pastor Penny, or somebody that we know and trust. And he's like, well, why? And I said, sweetheart, you don't know the Bible well enough to know if what it's telling you is really true. And he was like, I never thought about that. That makes sense. And he was totally fine with it, because he doesn't want to be led astray, but he just thought it would be convenient. And I said, he does come and ask if he has questions, for sure. But he just thought it would be nice, because it would be at his fingertips, the moment the thought struck.
Well, they have a lot of deep questions, very deep theological questions.
And I wouldn't want them to ask anybody else, Well, I wouldn't want them to ask something else. I know the people in our lives that he would go to for those questions, and I trust that they would give him the right answers.
So, okay, we keep talking about history repeating itself. This is with an electronic version, but this is exactly what King Nebuchadnezzar did back in Babylon. Mm-hmm. When he came in and he took the Israelites during the deportation and he took them back to Babylon, the whole thing was, I'm going to deport you, not keep you there. Because if I deport you and I assimilate you into my culture, his thinking was that within one generation, after everybody else had died, he would have completely changed the next generation and they would have forgotten God altogether. All right, here we are. We now have people who are being inundated all the time, with every aspect you have of your life, this AI. And if it starts going in one direction, if it starts giving you false information, they said that, what was it now? It's like 83% of the people know that these stories are fake.
But they believe them anyways.
Well, no, they don't believe them. They don't care.
Right. Oh,
they know they're fake. They know they're lies, but they don't care. They just read it anyway. Well, Well, even though you may know it's a lie, you keep reading that, eventually your brain starts going, well, yeah, I believe it now because I've seen it how many times.
Mm-hmm. And it becomes a part of kind of your, what's the word? Sort of your paradigm, the way you view the world.
Mm-hmm. So, in one generation time, look at what we're going to do. We're going to raise up an entire, we're not just talking culture, we're talking a world view. And what is this gearing us up for? This is what's so exciting. This is not a one episode thing. We're going to be digging into this even deeper next week. We're going to get into, not next year.
Not next year.
We just crossed the year, didn't we? We're going to be getting into how is this really teaming up with the 13th chapter of Revelation. We looked at that, but we're going to dig into this again. And what is the satanic, demonic forces that are behind this tool that's driving it in a direction that's going to usher in not only the Antichrist, but the false prophet.
So you are going to want to come back next week. So we're going to start talking then about artificial general intelligence, AGI, which is the next level, the next evolution, if you will, of AI. It takes us past generative and past agentic and even a little bit blowing through autonomous as we know it currently.
We're going to look at what AI is doing to even blackmail people and intimidate. Mm-hmm. But most importantly,
how using this in the wrong ways in particular really is partaking of this virtual tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
But with all the doom and gloom, I guess you could say AI. Again, it's a tool. It's just like anything. It's like a hammer. You can use a hammer for 99% good, but if you were to whack somebody over the head with it,
it can be used to build, or it can be used to destroy.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same way with everything. The difference with AI is that it allows a demonic energy possession behind it, where they can't with a hammer so much. But ultimately, we need to remember that what?
We are made in the image of God. And we have to be careful to not let it try to replace that.
And that's what AI is trying to do. And that's what we'll look at with the book of Revelation and how this merges. You are a masterpiece that God has created, and there is no one else like you, no matter how much AI tries.
It's still just a very pale second.
It's a copy, a forgery.
A forgery. Ooh, good word.
Okay. So remember, once you know, you can't unknow. Now what you choose to do with that, that's up to you.
But you can't say, we didn't tell you.
So until next time,
Shalom.